All right, everybody, welcome back to Unscripted from my studios here in Columbus, Ohio. Big day today. Big day. Exciting day for me today. Returning guest, one of the originals back when this whole podcast started, one of my heroes in terms of his writing. You all heard that in the intro and the bio, but Adam, welcome back.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to talk about. We got a lot of ground to cover. So it is summer. So I do you get a little bit of time off in the summer? Because I know you're busy during the year.
We unfortunately got some unscheduled time off a couple weeks ago. I had sort of blocked off to follow the Tar Heels to Omaha and was really hoping to be there for a long time this year. But unfortunately, baseball is very tough, and College World Series, I think, is the toughest college sports championship to win. So Carolina didn't make it. So we took a little time in there. But right now, it's camp time in Chapel Hill. Hubert Davis's camp, Eric Montross's camp, both sessions of Hubert's camp and Eric's camp happen within about 2 weeks of each other. So we'll have that. I think Kenny Smith's in town for his camp right after the 4th of July. So lots of people coming in and out of the Smith Center here over the summer.
You mentioned Eric. Wow, what a devastating loss for the Carolina family. So early, so young. Who runs his camp now?
His wife Laura and his kids Andrew and Sarah, and Andrew's wife Megan do an incredible job. Tyler Zeller helps out, kind of coordinating some things. There's a ton of 1993 guys who are back who are working as counselors. That's a camp where most of those people have been together for about 25 years, and to see the way they've come back, especially these last 2 years. This year they had to have it in the middle of the week. Just because of the way some holidays fell and the Smith Center availability. And so there was some concern, will people still come? And it's sold out again with a really long waiting list again. And everything's benefiting Be Loud Sophie and the North Carolina Children's Hospital. And it's a great couple of days. It's impossible to go over there and not leave feeling good about it. And it's been a chance to see some of the current guys who are also working as counselors. Caleb Wilson was a big hit the first day of camp working as a counselor. He has really got a lot of energy. And of course, he's about the same age as some of those guys. So that helps.
Well, and for those not familiar, Caleb Wilson is the star, for next year that a lot of us are looking forward to seeing and the latest Tar Heel edition, and hopefully a Tar Heel legend before he leaves. But, that's really cool. There's a team down the street that talks about brotherhood, but I know, Carolina talks about family. And, the Carolina family lost a legend. And to hear what you just said, that's family, right? We come together whenever there's a tragedy, a loss, we come together and we do the right thing. And so I love hearing that they're still running his camp and doing it well, not just his immediate family, but the Carolina family also supporting him.
Doesn't matter if you were teammates or not. Antoine Jameson drove up from Charlotte on the first day of camp to talk to the dads because he had never done that before and wanted to be part of it. So he made the trip from Charlotte specifically to be part of Eric's camp and was terrific. Just a great message. And I know those dads walked out of there thinking, I can't believe I just spent an hour with Antoine Jameson.
Yeah, man, that's special. Speaking of dads, you're a dad. So, man, the last time we talked, you had little ones. They're probably not little anymore. You're probably, I know I've seen some clips. You're in the travel baseball and some other travel sports now. How's life with all that?
Yeah, I'm old. Our youngest is now playing baseball at the College of Charleston.
Perfect.
So he has a very difficult life in which he goes to school in Charleston at a great place to go to school, great place to play baseball, and thinks it's normal, but really it's not. So that's our youngest. So we're out of kind of travel sports, but we're heavily into college baseball and try to make it to as many as we can, fitting that in between all the various other Tar Heel things that are going on.
As someone who works closely with the university and sees behind the curtain, so to speak, how hard is that being a dad of a travel sports kid or college kids now? You know what you know and what you see. How do you differentiate that as a dad between what you know, but also being a dad of kids that you're trying to support and want to see them do their best? Does that question make sense?
Yes, and it's something I think about a lot. I hope that this is true. I think it makes me a better sports dad.
Yeah.
Because I do know it's really hard to win even one college baseball game.
Mm.
And if you're not playing as much as you think you ought to be playing, I promise it's not that the coach is out to get you or in some way doesn't like you, that coach is getting paid to win. And he puts the guys on the field who he thinks on that day give him the best chance to win one game so they can come back tomorrow and try to win another one. And I think that's one thing we sort of take for granted with Carolina baseball. We just assume you're going to win somewhere between 40 and 50 games every year. It's hard to win one. And when people start talking about, well, why are they running the same lineup out there every day? Those are the guys that the coach trusts. Those are the guys who he thinks can win that game on that day. And it's hard because everybody wants you to, just throw somebody out there and give them a chance. Well, you throw them out there and give them a chance, the other team's going to score 5 runs, you lose the game, and everybody's mad because you lost the game. It's such a long season. It's so much work. I don't think people understand how much effort goes into just getting to the point that you're starting the season. There's been so many long afternoons and practices and sessions in the weight room and going to class and all that stuff. It is legitimately a full-time job. And so I try to have a little better perspective on that. And I think, and also I hope it gives me a better perspective that our son's a pitcher. If a guy hits a home run off you, he might just be good. You might have thrown a good pitch. He might be really good. That is going to happen. Just like you're going to strike out hitters that are good, because they're just going to miss it on that day. So just the length of the season and the perspective required to keep coming back, even when you're having a really bad day, to get back out there the next day. I think that's the thing that maybe I'm a little more aware of, that sometimes as I'm sitting in the stands, I hear other parents complaining about, and I think, like, I get where you're coming from, but it's a lot harder than what you might be used to.
Yeah, we were blessed to have a pitcher in our home as well. And so I feel you. I think when we watch games and our kids are in the collegiate experience, we watch them a lot different. I love that perspective from you. And now people are probably starting to understand why you're, just one of my heroes. You have an ability to explain things maybe better than I can as I stumble over my words. But I really like that because it's true. And we're going to talk basketball in a few minutes. It's true. These are college kids. And, sometimes somebody's just better. I mean, sometimes somebody's just better. And sometimes when we watch the games and we think, the coach should do this and I could do this. Well, they're there every day. They're in practice, and sometimes I'm sure you've been to practices, sometimes there's disciplinary reasons why maybe a guy's not playing, or there's something that they did on campus. We don't know. But we just watch a game and we think, oh, he should have played so-and-so here, man. We have a really good ability to armchair quarterback. And I'm glad you're not doing that.
And this, it completely changes the way you look at what happens on the field, especially when your kid is a pitcher.
Right.
Just even if your mortal enemy team is playing, if that pitcher gives up like a walk-off home run or something, you feel for that guy.
Absolutely.
Because you've been there 100%. The recent Arkansas left fielder who made the error, Asher played against him in high school. And I wouldn't say he was my favorite player because he's really good. Obviously, he's at Arkansas, but definitely carries himself a certain way. And someone said something to me like, oh, you must have been really happy that he made that error. Really not. I mean, right. Because like what his family is feeling and what he's feeling and the thousands of hours that went into be able to stand in left field on that day. So even when it's somebody who maybe you don't have a particular proclivity for, still to do it on that stage and have that type of pressure and make those plays that some plays aren't going to work out, it just totally changes how you feel about it.
Yeah, I love that you're watching the game through that lens, and that has to be helpful for you in what you do. Whether it's the podcast or emails you receive or hate you receive on X or whatever, when you say something, I mean, it's a different world now. I do have one more question for you. Any books or projects currently before we move to basketball? I know you've had 11 books. Is it 11 so far?
I think that's right. In the very early stages of the next book, and I'm excited about it. Not quite ready to go down the road of talking about it yet,
okay,
but
all right.
It is being worked on. Doubt it'll be out next year. I would say probably the next year, but it's one I've been wanting to do here for about a year and a half or so, and glad I'm finally getting started on it.
Well, if you want to launch that book when it's ready, you and the 5 people that listen to my podcast, man, you always have my platform whenever you want to do it.
I'll be here.
All right. All right, let's talk UNC a little bit, and then, and again, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, so some of our audience is probably going to check out because we're not talking Ohio State. But for those that do love Carolina, Belichick's in town, man. What's it been like? I mean, we don't have to go into a lot here. Man, first of all, did you expect Bill Belichick? Did you ever see in your wildest dreams that this situation would be in play?
No, no. Who there's no one who would be telling the truth who would say, I thought that one day Bill Belichick would be the head football coach at North Carolina.
It's wild.
And I think I obviously knew who Bill Belichick was. I had watched him coach on TV, but I definitely underestimated just the national cred he carries is in not just the football world, but in the sports world. And I think maybe Carolina might have underestimated that a little bit because I think we all saw him as a football coach, but not as this national celebrity figure who people are so interested in every single thing that he does because he wins so much. It really has been an eye opener. I don't think I expected. Let's leave aside some of the stuff that's happened this summer, but even like back in January, February, as he was ramping up, just the daily interest in what is Bill Belichick doing today at North Carolina. We've never seen that at Carolina football for anybody. Never been close to that.
I loved Mac Brown. I did. I love that Mac Brown came home. I think it gave a small recruiting bump. We saw the impact of it. This is a whole nother level of crazy. And let me make an analogy. When you go to Chipotle, you don't get the guacamole, and you get to the cash register and they say, do you want guacamole? And you're like, yeah. They're like, well, it's a little extra. You're like, cool. Okay. Right. Or you're not, if you don't like guacamole, I don't know. But I would say that the Belichick arrival has been like going to Chipotle. This is a horrible analogy, but I think you're tracking with me. I don't think they knew that they were getting guacamole and what it would cost them at the cash register.
No,
Okay.
it has just been, well, and just the simple fact that Carolina is opening the season on Monday Night Football under the lights against TCU, that would have been an attractive Saturday afternoon game, probably under any other coach. Under this coach, it is going to be one of, if not the game of the weekend. First time ever Carolina's played on Monday night under the lights at Kenan Stadium, and it will be an incredible atmosphere in Chapel Hill that entire day and at Kenan Stadium that.
I love it. I do love it for the university. I do want them to be competitive. I want them to be relevant. And for those of us that are fans, they have been relevant. We can tell stories, right? You got Chrome Helmet behind you that the Fedora years, and don't kick it to Geo, right? We know that. But I like the national stage. But boy, it's going to come with a lot of heat because we have Coach Bill Belichick now. That's going to be interesting. See how it plays out.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think the last time we talked, Roy Williams was our head coach. That's been that long since we recorded. Hubert Davis is now our head coach. Been an interesting journey. I think there's been many times there's a lot of heat that a lot of fans feel. I think the funny thing is we all love Hubert. We adore Hubert. I don't know that it's always gone like we hoped it would go, especially last season. We loved the run. I want to talk about, knocking out Coach K twice as well before we get out of here. But boy, where are we at with Hubert Davis? I mean, you're on the ground there. For those of us just, fans outside of the program, and I know you probably have to be careful here, but where are we at with Hubert?
Well, I think Hubert Davis would tell you, and as a fan, and fans know that just sort of the up and down nature of the last few years, and that even predates Hubert Davis, has not been what Carolina basketball fans are accustomed to. At the same time, this era of college basketball is not what anyone in college sports is accustomed to. And I think it's fair to say that the job Hubert Davis accepted as head coach has changed completely since that day. And we're still kind of figuring out what's involved with that job. There are some places that were eager to jump into a new world where the rules were not quite as existent as they used to be and do whatever they had to do right at that moment to succeed. I think now that there's the House settlement and things are on a little more even footing, I do think that gives you a little better lens to look at things like consistency and try to figure out. Hopefully, it won't be quite as much of a, well, did you hit or did you miss in the transfer portal? Which is really what these last few years have come down to. The years Carolina's hit, they've been very good. The years they've missed, they've been above average. to average. And that's just not the way Carolina basketball has existed. College basketball has changed. Hopefully now that there's at least some type of rule. Maybe the Tar Heels can get back to doing things more consistently, which is what Hubert Davis wants, and it's what certainly every Carolina fan wants.
I think too, the addition of a GM now takes a lot of pressure off Hubert, because at the end of the day, all the heat's coming to Hubert. You had other colleges that have GMs, and they're out there. This is a very new world, and I hope Carolina fans understand that. I do. Doesn't mean I don't get frustrated on game day. It doesn't mean I don't have a million thoughts or coaching concepts that I think they would employ. But at the end of the day, I think the new GM will certainly help take some heat. But that's a lot of heat on that new GM. You got to get this right. I mean, this is the new landscape of college basketball. It's almost like being a GM in the NBA now. I mean, these kids, they're not choosing the program because their parents went there. They're not choosing a program because they like the color of the uniform. They're not choosing a program because they grew up in that state. Man, kids are choosing who's going to pay me. What's my best opportunity? What mobile phone company can I represent? I'm saying it's a very different time. Boy, that's been very hard to watch, because we all grew up watching guys that committed to Carolina because they loved Dean Smith, they loved Roy Williams, and they played hard for him. That's a really tough job for Hubert and that new GM.
I think it makes it tougher as a fan as well. I mean, the fun of being a fan is you invest in these guys who are Tar Heels, and you love being part of the arc of their career where they come in and maybe they don't know what's going on, and then you see them make progress to the time when they're a senior and they're these beloved veterans. Well, now you invest in a guy, he might be playing for NC State a couple months later.
Right.
So
Crazy.
am I burned now? Am I going to be able to invest the same way this fall when you tell me, okay, these are the new Tar Heels? So I think it's really tough as a fan to deal with that at the same time that your costs are going up exponentially just to be part of this whole enterprise, whether that's buying tickets or being asked to participate in NIL in some way, or all the other expenses that you bear just to kind of be a sports fan in 2025. It's not easy. And I think the business of college sports is figuring out they've got to realize you can't just keep raising every price and expect people to keep coming back while you're also giving them this product that's very different than what they're accustomed to. So that whole dance is something that hopefully we're figuring out.
Last Christmas, not this one, but 2 years ago, my daughter, it was Baycott's last year. She got me tickets. I've never been to the Dean Dome for a game. I've been to the Dean Dome, but not for a game. So we went. It was Baycott's last night. I don't know if you remember. They hit like 100 threes. I think Baycott hit 2 or something. It was the last game of the season. I don't even remember who they played. I really don't. It was just awesome. It was such an experience for me as a huge fan to go to the Dean Dome, just being with fans. Of course, they won, so the energy was good, right? They weren't losing the game, but no, what an experience! It was so awesome, and so it's so hard, because in one hand, I understand why the players are saying what they're saying. I do, but at the same time, I feel like we're losing the tradition, the beauty. You've been in this your entire career, the nostalgia, all the things about college basketball. I feel like we're slowly slipping away, maybe faster now, almost at a record pace. We're losing that to gain this. And I feel like the toothpaste is kind of out of the tube at this point. I don't know if we can get it back. And that makes me sad as a fan watching Dean Smith, Kenny, J.R. Reed, Kenny Smith. That's tough.
Yeah, you've got to give us back something as fans. Like if you're going to take away the ACC as we know it, and you're going to take away the double round robin in basketball, and you're going to replace it with this absurd 18 game conference schedule in which really you're only playing Duke twice, and we might let you play somebody else twice, but otherwise you play everybody, except you don't play everybody because there's one you don't play. Like, that's not a conference. That's just some TV shows. So if you're taking away our conference and giving us back this TV show, you got to give us something, whether it's quality of play or just the whole game day experience that you're talking about. Like, it's got to be fun to go to the Smith Center because you're going to have to park and you're going to have to buy concessions and all those things. So, and that is something that athletic departments are putting a lot of thought into, is how do we make this a worthwhile endeavor? You're going to see some things on football game day this fall that are going to acknowledge that this is a day-long enterprise, and University of North Carolina needs you to come to Chapel Hill and buy a ticket and spend your money and all those things. And there was a long time where you just sort of opened the gates and said, well, they'll be here.
That's right.
And that's not how it is anymore. You've got to make an effort.
Well, I can tell you from a guy from Columbus, Ohio, 2 years ago, it was a wonderful experience. And so shout out to everybody involved, everybody from people working concessions, parking, everybody. It was a great experience. My daughter and I had a wonderful time. Just an awesome game day experience. One last question in the Carolina thing, outlook for this season. How are you feeling?
We talking basketball?
Yes.
It's so hard to know with 9 new guys. On paper, the basketball side of things, it appears to be a well-constructed team. What we have learned during the portal is a whole lot of the equation of the season is how do they fit on and off the court together? What is the chemistry like? Are they an actual team, or are they some guys who showed up like at the YMCA to play on a Tuesday night for a couple games and then they go home? Carolina has had times where there have been really solid teams. The Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram team comes to mind, where those weren't longtime Tar Heels, but they were a team. Is this group going to be that? I don't see any reason to think that they won't be, but it's also the middle of June, and there's no way to know for sure yet. I think this is going to sound weird. I think this team may be less talented than last year's team, but I think it might be a better basketball team because they don't have some of the individual talent that last year's team had, but they are just a better put together team, I think, which I think will lead to more wins. That's certainly the hope. So that's the hope. I certainly think you've got some newcomers who are very exciting. You mentioned Caleb Wilson being one of them, and some guys in the portal who I think have been impressive in the little bit that we've seen them so far. So long way to go, but I mean, this is the new college basketball calendar, so they'll actually get to practice some in the next week or two. It used to be we'd have to wait until October to see them. Now we'll see them in June, July. So that's exciting to know that you're starting over again.
Yeah, well, it's a wait and see process. And I think that's every team in the country. It really is. Whether you lost 5 players to the draft or whether you lost 5 players to the portal, whatever it might be, this is the new landscape, as we've kind of talked about a lot. One last question for you. I'm sorry, I did have one more question when it comes to Carolina basketball. How special was ending Coach K's career at Duke and then Caleb Love's shot in the Final Four? Man, that had to be for you. So for all of us, but man, you've been so close to this program. How special was that run?
That was one of the most, if not the most, unbelievable months I've ever had covering Carolina basketball. Just because of the way it started with the win at Cameron, and I mean, Carolina fans don't forget, but I think some people forget that game was scripted to be a Duke coronation. I mean, we had the tunnel of love with all the alumni out there, and they had Coach K on their quarter zips, and absolutely no one, including, as it very quickly became evident, including Duke, had given any thought to the idea that Carolina might win the game. And I just remember being outside the locker room after the Tar Heels had won the game before that, which was at the Smith Center. And as soon as that game was over, the players and coaches were talking about, we are not going over to Durham to be part of some party. And they weren't.
Right.
And that was just, to that point, one of the most satisfying wins I can ever remember seeing in person. And I remember walking out of Cameron thinking, well, whatever else happens the rest of the season, this has been a success. Little did I know that a month later I would be thinking, if the Tar Heels don't win this game, it may be the most catastrophic loss I've ever seen. If the Tar Heels don't win in the Final Four and crack the door for Coach K to cap this farewell extravaganza with parades and floats and a national championship, I mean, that would have been horrific. And to meet in the Final Four anytime would have been a huge deal. But to meet in the Final Four in that scenario, it really helped that Duke had some guys who were so Dukish, Paolo Banchero, who...
So cocky.
They just reminded you that, okay, this is Duke. Got to win this one.
Yeah.
And the Tar Heels did. And I've never seen the outpouring of happiness from players, fans, parents. I mean, so many tears in the Superdome that night when Carolina won the game. I've never seen that, including after national championships to that level. And it just reminded you of how much it means to people, of how much weight this carries in people's lives. I mean, that legitimately, I think that night is something that people will be talking about with the people they were with on that night 10, 20, 30 years from now. It was that kind of night. And the fact that that team was able to have two nights like that within a month of each other is just incredible.
It is for us that are Tar Heel fans. For those that are Duke fans, it's just the complete opposite, and you kind of love that. The other thing I would say, and I genuinely mean this, I feel like playing in the Final Four was so epic. You know, it had not been done yet, and for this is, as you said, Coach K's moment. And I have told friends this. I actually, and I hate that I really kind of like John Shire. I think he's a heck of a coach. He's a heck of a recruiter. He's doing a great job. And so I would never in my life have said those words about Coach K, even if he did. And so, you know, Shire's a likable guy. Almost feel like my hatred in the rivalry dialed back like to a 3 versus a 10 when Coach K was there. I don't know if that's fair. And I don't know if it's true. I just know for me. So I honestly kind of approach the games now like, oh yeah, hey, it's Carolina Duke. Love it. Hate Duke, whatever. Man, before I came to those games, like just so, you know, so angry. And it doesn't help that I like John Shire a lot. And he just seems like a more likable guy. I just, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, how many people don't seem like a more likable guy than the prior option? But I do think that John Shire does. Can't really drum up a problem with John Shire. Seems like a very forthright individual. Seems like a good basketball coach. Seems like he's got his priorities in order. I as a player, I didn't really dislike him that much. So I agree on that part. I would say 10-3. That's a far
That's a
drop.
pretty big move.
Maybe like 10-9.
All right. All right. I'll
But
work on it.
we had decades to learn things about Coach K that we decided we didn't like, and tough losses to take at his hands that made us dislike him more. And we haven't had that with this new regime. And the same thing's true of the players. I mean, there are players, good players, who have played for Duke in the last 10 years or so that I honestly forgot they played for Duke
Mm-hmm.
because they were there so short of a time, and college basketball as a whole is getting to that point. So I think that has an impact on the rivalry too. That there are no Bobby Hurleys or Christian Leitners, or hesitate to say his name, even Grayson Allen, who are going to be there for year after year. The ones you really dislike the most, by the time you get to disliking them, they're out the door.
That's right. Yeah, because it's one season and they're gone. And that's the other thing too, is it's like, you know, to your point, 10 years, we had a lot of time to, you know, hate on Coach Duke or Coach K for many of the things. You know, the one thing I guess I'd hate on at the moment is they're killing it in recruiting. They're killing it in the portal. So yeah, so now that anger is starting to go up. I'll give you this. My anger went from a 3 to a 7 or an 8 because they just seem to be reeling it in right now. When Carolina seemed to miss out on some of these guys in the portal or this guy. So I'm back up to a 7 or 8. Is that okay?
That's a good place to be. And by the time basketball gets started, you'll be right back up there at 9. I'm not worried about it.
All right. Hey, let's finish out with one thing, man. You had an opportunity of a lifetime because of a huge Carolina fan named Eric Church, some guy that some people may have heard of. You had a great opportunity. Can you talk a little bit about that whole experience and what that was like?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was the summer of 2023. Had gotten to know Eric Church a little bit through just our mutual love of North Carolina athletics. Had talked to him for a couple stories a couple times, and when we finished talking for the story, we would always keep talking Tar Heels. And so we stayed in contact, and I'd always said, hey, if you ever tour at a time that doesn't conflict with the basketball season, let me know, and I'll come out, and we'll treat it like a season, and I'll just write every night because his shows are different every night. It's not like some other shows where you go, and if I go watch you in Cincinnati, it's going to be the exact same show as in Spokane, Washington. Eric's shows are different every single time. And it just so happened that in the summer of 2023, he was doing amphitheaters, which he had not really done an amphitheater tour before. So it did go through the summer. So my wife and I went out and went to, I think, every single one except for maybe one or two, which was about 30 dates in the span of a couple of months. And just an incredible experience. The shows themselves, because they are so good, in my opinion, they're the best you can go to. Because of that difference and because of the way that it's something different every night. And even the people on stage don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes before the show. And it's affected the way I go to other shows. Went to see somebody recently and thought, man, this just is not up to what I'm accustomed to. So it's kind of like Carolina basketball. It spoils you a little bit.
Yeah.
But in addition to the shows, the people on Eric's crew, just so welcoming. I mean, they had no reason to be nice to us, and we talked about, like, are we going to be the most uncool people there? And they're like, who are these idiots? Get them out of here. And it wasn't like that at all. They were so welcoming. It is truly a family on the road with him, and he's got people who have been with him the entire time he's been doing it since '06, and it shows because they are professional. Had a lot of different openers on that tour, and so got to see some of the professionalism that you might take for granted on Eric's side is not always present.
Yeah.
And that was an eye opener to someone like me who I don't know the music business. I just know the Eric business. And so some of those things I might not have appreciated about the way he runs things came home through that way. And getting to stay in touch with all of them over the last couple of years and be part of some of the other things they've done, opening up Chiefs on Broadway in Nashville, the shows at Royal Albert Hall in London just a couple months ago. Just some experiences we never, ever, ever would have had without being part of it. And we're going to run it back because he's going back on tour this fall, and we're going again.
Love it. And I would agree with you. I saw him in Columbus, Ohio. I think he did 32 songs. It was the Gather Again tour. 32 songs. And then I believe it was the next night or within the next few days, he was supposed to be in Pennsylvania, and his whole team got COVID. So he went out there. I think Morgan Wallen showed up that night, and he went out there and did an acoustic set himself. Man, that is the GOAT move. You know, like, instead of just refunding a bunch of tickets saying, sorry guys, everybody's got COVID, he had the show. And I bet it was more amazing than what he did in Columbus. No offense to his band, but boy, I'd pay to just see Eric do an acoustic set. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. This guy's pretty special.
Well, and so he's doing 3 nights at Red Rocks in July, and all 3 nights are going to be different. There's going to be one night with like full choir, strings, everything. There's going to be one night like a typical Eric Church and band show. And then there's going to be one night just Eric and a guitar. I don't think there's anyone else in music currently who could pull that off to that level with 3 completely different shows on 3 consecutive nights at that venue. It's like at the concert for Carolina in the fall of 24.
Incredible.
You got 80,000 people there raising money for Hurricane Helene relief, and he comes out with just a guitar. I mean, nobody else can do that. The room is too big to be able to pull that off for everybody except for him. And he's just got a feel for being able to do that in a way that I haven't seen anybody else do it.
I have a million other questions for you about that. We don't have time for them.
Oh, that's my fun time. You never lose a concert. So I love talking about that. People don't go home mad after concerts like they do after sporting events.
So what was the difference touring? Because you go on the road with the team, and you go on the road with the teams. You're there for games. You're in Cameron Indoor. You've now been with him in concert arenas. Like, was there a difference between the two?
You don't have any opposing fans at a concert. Everybody's there to cheer for the team you're also there to cheer for. So that helps. It is definitely more relaxed in the music world in a variety of ways, I think. But part of that is because of the trust they all have in each other. Like, there was a night in Texas, part of the show in 23 was hanging up the state flag of whatever state we were in. And the Texas flag, unless you are a Texan, looks pretty similar right side up and upside down. This particular night in Texas, they raised it upside down, but no one noticed except for the native Texans, who are very passionate about their flag.
Sure.
So I remember I've got people coming up to me like, hey, the flag's upside down. Like, what do you want me to do about it? Do I look like I know what to do about that flag 100 feet in the air? You're talking to the wrong guy. But so they're talking to Eric in his ear off mic, and eventually they all decide, all right, we're going to fix it right now, just right in the middle of the show. So he just breaks into Luckenbach, Texas, while they lower the flag, turn it over, raise it back up, and just goes on with the show. I don't think people understand that that's not normal, and to be able to do that on the fly, completely unscripted, as some people correctly name their podcast,
That's right.
is just, that's not a skill that you can be taught, and that's not a skill that most people have, and that's what makes those nights so fun, because I truly can't imagine something that could happen that they're not prepared for. And there aren't really any off nights. It's not like basketball where you might show up and shoot 3 for 17 just because it's one of those days. So far, I haven't seen a night where he forgets the words to Springsteen and just stands there and isn't sure what to do. Like, I mean, yes, there will be some nights where he's trying to play a song that he hasn't played in 12 years. And he's like, I think I know this one. Or his go to is, I used to know this. But he'll either figure it out or he'll play something different. And the different will be just as good. I mean, I know I probably sound like Eric Church PR, but in a lot of ways, I think I am, because I've never seen a bad one. I've seen a lot of different ones, but I haven't seen any bad ones. And that goes back to when I was just going as a fan. And a lot of that is because he has got the best people in the world at what they do, whether that's playing the guitar, whether that's running the sound, whether that's running the lights, whether that's being the guitar tech. That's the best crew in the world helping him and backing him. And they put out one of the best products in the world on a nightly basis. It's hard to do that. Like, you and I go to a concert and we just assume, all right, the stage will be set up. When we get there, we'll just walk in, they'll play us some songs. Well, that stage was in a different state the night before.
Crazy.
They had to load it on trucks, take it apart, and then put it back together just so you and I could show up there and listen to some music. That is not normal. And those guys and girls who do that are, in my opinion, they're the best.
Well, and the latest one was the Eras tour, which was just an incredible, logistical nightmare. But they were sending out, I think I read somewhere where they were sending out, one show ahead of time. So when they're tearing down in Columbus, the set in Cleveland's already being built. Like, she had to go way ahead of that. Was incredible. To your point, there's a lot more that goes into it than just buying a ticket and showing up for a guy singing with a guitar. It's incredible.
Well,
that had to be an amazing experience.
And I think she and Eric kind of look at it the same way, and they actually have a funny history in which he got fired from the Rascal Flatts tour for playing too long, and they replaced him with Taylor Swift, who at that point in time was a nobody.
Yeah, he set her up.
But I think they both kind of look at it the same way, where they're not going to have an A show and a B show. So maybe like the Pittsburgh show on Thursday, we're going to use the B set, and like that'll be the B show. And then Friday night in Cleveland, that's the A show. We're really going all out for that one. Every one they do is going to be an A show. So there was an instance last summer in, I think, August of 24, where Eric had a show in Alabama on, let's say, a Friday night, and then a show in Wisconsin at a festival on a Saturday night. Well, you can't get the stuff from Alabama to Wisconsin in time to do it unless you charter a jet, put your 100 people on a jet, and create an exact same set that you're going to use in both places that you don't have to transport, but you transport the people on a big old jet. And there's a lot of ways to cut corners on that, and they didn't do that. They had the exact same set and the exact same people in both places because they want both crowds, both sets of ticket buyers, to get an A show. There are no B shows.
Amazing. It's like the Apple experience. It's the same on your phone as it is on your iPad, as it is on your computer, as it is on your Mac Mini. It's the same experience. I know Steve Jobs was maybe the originator of, I want people to have the same experience no matter what device they're on. It's the same in concert. That's incredible, man. What an opportunity that you had to do that. There was a book that came out. Is that still available? Because it was part of your writing and part of your process, right?
Yeah, Summer Under the Stars was just a book about that summer 2023 tour, and some incredible photos by Anthony DeAngio, who's Eric's photographer, and John Lyon, who also takes some pictures for Eric. The pictures were amazing. Some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, I think it's on Eric's website. They did a limited run of them because we really had never done anything like that before and weren't sure if people wanted it. And it turns out some of them did. So I'm hoping we'll do something similar for this upcoming tour.
I love it. So you're going to be on the road with him again?
Yes, he's going back out in September through November. And then who knows? Maybe there'll be more to come in January, February, March. So looking forward to getting to be part of that because it's a highlight every time.
Well, if you're in Columbus, Ohio, man, let me buy you a meal. Let me just thank you, shake your hand and tell you thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we get out of here, links, where can people find you?
I put all my stuff up on X and on Instagram. Dusty Tompkins does some incredible job with some graphics for Instagram that have made me look like I know what I'm doing. At J. Adam Lucas on both of those. And then stories and stuff on GoHeels.com, and then the podcast with Jens, the Carolina Insider.
That's right. Okay. Last question for you. What would you tell your younger self?
That's a good question. I think I would probably tell my younger self, you're probably not going to play for the Tar Heels, so start thinking of some other options to be around the Tar Heels. The thing I think I probably tell my kids most often is just be confident in yourself. Don't spend as much time thinking about, do you measure up to those other people that you're worried about, because they really don't matter. They'll fall by the wayside in one way or the other. But if you have confidence in yourself, you've got the ability to do whatever you want. But you have to be willing to take a few chances that may not work out, and that may not seem like they're working out right at that moment, but may end up working out. You might drop out of law school and not have a job, but you might end up doing things that are more fun than you ever even had considered at that point in time. So I think just self confidence and being willing to believe that you're doing what's right for you is something that you unfortunately you just have to learn through experience.
Man, well said. I can't say anything else besides that. You have lived an incredible story. An incredible story. You've written about it. So many of us hang on your every word. I said this in my intro. ESPN's great. The highlights are great. X is great. Social media is great. We can watch clips, but I actually would rather read your recap because it's so close and it's so personal. The day after a Tar Heel win or loss, hopefully a win, but during a season, know that myself and others, many others, look towards what you write because that really tells the story more than some video clips, or some guy ranting about his thoughts about the game. You're so close to it, and I hope that makes sense. But we appreciate you. You are very appreciated, and I hope you know that from anyone in Tar Heel Nation. They know who you are, and we appreciate your narrative and the way that you can put a story together. We just appreciate you, brother.
Man, Aaron, I appreciate that. That's all I've ever wanted to do, and I've been lucky because I've had some great teams and players, and now singers and songwriters and musicians to write about. And without them, I'm just sitting here trying to find something to write about. So the fact that they're able to do it every single night, and I get to be there to watch it, and hopefully be a small part of the way people experience it, is truly it's a dream come true.
Well, if Eric Church is anywhere in Ohio, I believe it's either Cleveland or Columbus or both, man. I seriously, I'd love to just shake your hand and just thank you for just what you've done and how much I appreciate you. And I know there's a lot of guys here in Columbus, Ohio, in my little Tar Heel group chat that are big fans of yours too. So thanks for your time today, brother. It's really, I can't appreciate it enough.
Absolutely, he's coming to both, so they're both going to be different. So we got to see you out there at both of them.
All right. Well, Cleveland's 2 hours away. That's my hometown. I would love that. And one more story, real quick. There's a guy named Michael Stanley who passed, but it was a band called Michael Stanley Band. They had a couple songs that went, but in Ohio, he's a legend. And Eric, there's a video out there where he learned my town. This is my town.
Yep,
And he's like, we've never played this before. Yeah, right. He goes out there and he said, hey, this is my town. We've never played this before. And then he crushed it. And so it's one of my favorites because I love Eric. I love Michael Stanley and I love Cleveland. So it was awesome.
And that's what makes him special, is that he can find that thing that ties a town together that you don't know if you're just stopping in. But he's not just stopping in. He wants to be part of it. And I remember being at that show and thinking, I don't know that I've really ever heard this song, but these people are going crazy.
Crazy.
And it obviously means something to them, and just the musical ability to, he had never considered playing that song ever prior to that day. And so to learn it and learn it with your band and be able to execute it in front of 20,000 people, I mean, come on, who else is doing that?
Well, it's our national anthem in Cleveland, so he nailed it. Yeah, I will try as my best if he's in Cleveland to get up there, and if nothing else, man, just shake your hand, but also, maybe hear Eric Church play.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Aaron.